What is up guys, Andy Forrest Theme Runner here and welcome back to another video, and today we're talking all about how to run faster for longer. This is such a common question that gets asked all the time, whether it's to myself or whether it's on social media. I see this question being asked a lot, and there's a lot of people that have covered this topic, and today I would like to put my spin on this. We always face daunting prospects in running, whether we're just starting our couch to 5k journey and wondering how the hell we're going to run 5k after just 10 or 11 weeks of training, or we've just completed our first half marathon and are thinking, oh my goodness, my first marathon is in 6 months time and I've got to run that distance again. All of these things are usually quite daunting. So what I want to do today is break this down to beginners and advanced. So the beginners section, I'm going to talk about the basics that will help you guys progress. And in the advanced section, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper and talk about the specifics that I've done in training that I've found have really helped me. If you're excited for today's video, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and we'll start with beginners. The first point I want to share for all of you out there is don't run all of your runs at the same pace. This is a trap that I fell into when I first started running. I would go out there for nearly 4 months and just run as hard as I could, assuming that if I ran fast, I would get faster, and then not understanding why I was fatiguing so much, getting injured, and then dropping 30 seconds on a normal 2-mile loop that I was doing to the previous attempt because I was just fatigued. And actually, it's kind of struck me, that was at the point when I started doing some research, that actually this can't be right. And it's not. You do not want to go out there and run every single run at the same pace. This isn't the video for me to go into the technicalities of your zones, thresholds, and all of that stuff. But the basic bottom line is, a lot of the times you want to be running at a really easy conversational pace. Now what that means is you should be out there running at a very slow, relaxed pace. And if you're running with a friend, you should be able to talk to them. Sometimes, I guess another way of thinking about it is actually you should be able to breathe through your nose whilst you're running. Maybe not quite there, but I mean, that is a very, very relaxed pace. And to be honest with you, I go on the conversational basis. If I can chat with a friend whilst I'm running, I know I'm running in the right zone. And most of your runs want to be made up around that as you're a beginner runner. And then what you want to do is start sprinkling a little bit of speed work in there, here and there. I used to start off by sprinting from lamppost to lamppost. It's a really basic example, and actually sometimes I didn't have the energy to sprint, so I just put what I would class as a surge in, and I would just go from lamppost to lamppost and then rest between the next one and then go again on the next one, and just do little things like that and have a play around. But for starters, you certainly don't want to go out there all guns blazing, running as fast as you can. You really do need to dial it back. And speaking of speed, a really safe way to introduce some speed into your running is something called strides. So if you are a predominantly easy runner and point 1 doesn't apply to you, but you do fancy adding in some safe speed, strides is such a great way of doing it. I won't cover old ground. There are plenty of videos out there if you search up running strides or how to do running strides. There'll be great content out there, but the basic gist of it is you tend to tack them on to the end of a easy run, and you might do something like 4 to 6 by anywhere between 60 to 100 meters. So 4 to 6 repetitions of around 60 to 100 meters, where you end up getting to around 90% of your all-out pace. So if 100% is the fastest you can go, you're just notching it back a touch, and actually you're not staying at 90% for that whole duration. I like to work into my strides. This is a personal opinion. I like to basically slowly start to increase pace, and I get to around 90% and I just hold it for about 4, 5, 6 seconds, and then I ease back down the other side. And what I find that does, and what you'll find it does, is it really helps your biomechanics, your running form. For me in particular, my knee drive gets better. I find I'm more bolt upright, more straight, feeling like I've got a piece of string pulling the back of my head. Chin gets tucked, and all I'm thinking about is driving the arms straight, knees up, and naturally our body falls into a better running form than what we would normally do if we're just plodding around easy. So not only does it help with speed, but it also helps with running form. And that leads me on nicely to point 3, which is talking all about biomechanics. Drills and strides is something that we can all incorporate and probably realistically do better with. Now, if you've been watching a lot of my recent training videos, you'll see in the speed workouts in particular, drills and strides is something that I've been doing a lot of. So what do I mean by that? Well, we won't talk about strides because we just talked about those, but the drills are just running drills. They're running form work that we can do before our runs, whether it's butt kicks, high knees, A skips, B skips, Adding in the strides there, working on some upper back movement, just basically a dynamic warm-up is the best way to put it. Now, for me, what that's done is that's helped iron out the kinks in my running form. I will never have perfect running form, and a lot of us will get frustrated with our running form, especially when we watch ourselves on camera. But what we can do is stop striving for running perfection, running form perfection, where we see other runners and you think, oh man, they look so effortless when they run. We have to use what our body is giving us. But what we can do, as I said, is we can iron out the kinks. So there are some things we can do. Like for me, I certainly can work on increasing my cadence, and that's what the running drills I've been doing have really helped, and they could help you too. They get us working a lot more efficiently and a lot more smartly, and I find in my workouts, especially towards the end of my speed block, my cadence has very gently increased. And I think to myself, if I continually stack this block after block, year after year, I will get there. And that's how you guys have to look at it. If you're looking at your running form and you're thinking, I could improve this, I could improve that, drills and strides will really help. And the final point I want to make in this beginner section is talking all about increasing your mileage and just how to do it safely, because this is something that really will help develop your aerobic system. More running, the better at the end of the day, but naturally, I know that a lot of us have commitments. A lot of us have jobs, family, kids, whatever it might be, things that we have to fit running around, whether it's done early in the morning like myself or late in the evening. I know that time is limited. So in terms of increasing mileage, it can be tough, but if you feel you're at that stage in your running journey where you want to take the next step and you want to increase your mileage, my recommendation always has been, and I'm going to give you my example so you can see how I've done it nice and slowly, is I remember starting out around 25 to 30 miles a week for the first year, and that's where I stuck at. And then the second year I went to 30 to 35, and then the third year 35 to 40, and then from the fourth year to now, which is I'm in my 7th or 8th year, I've gradually increased from 40 up to around 60 to 65, and I've basically done 5 miles a year. Now, don't get me wrong, that is very, very slow, and you can increase your miles a lot quicker, but I will just hasten to add that really, when you do start increasing miles week on week, you should really increase, then hold for 3 or 4 weeks just to make sure your body adapts, settles, and feels good at that mileage. And genuinely, I would never look to increasing more than, if you work in kilometers, maybe 2 or 3 kilometers a week, and then hold that and then go again. And you can basically tack a kilometer onto the end of a couple of runs here and there just to get that extra distance, but then sit and hold and make sure you're happy. So if you're running 5k runs and you want to do 6k, great. Sit and hold at 6k for 2 or 3 weeks, and then maybe try 6.5, 7, and so on and so forth. Take things slowly and make sure your body is happy with everything before you increase. And again, with mileage, I find half a mile to a mile increase per run here and there is absolutely fine. And that's actually even now what I still do. I might just tack on, I might work in time, so I might run an extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That's it. And then I'll sit and hold at that for a while before looking to increase again. For me personally, I like to get my body settled at a mileage and know that my body can handle it, get a couple of training blocks under my belt where I feel that that mileage is comfortable before moving on. I highly recommend you do that too. So let's move into the advanced section, and what I want to do here is share with you some specific training tips that I found over the last 3 or 4 years have really helped me climb that ladder, you know, taking those baby steps and slowly creeping up and getting my times faster and faster. Obviously, I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but I'm getting there slowly, and these things will hopefully help you guys too. But I've got to get the obvious out of the way. Obviously, stacking training block on top of training block on top of training block, lifetime mileage, you'll hear it all, consistency is key. This is a massive factor in terms of becoming a better runner. If you can get a good routine going, that naturally is going to help you run faster for longer. At the end of the day, that is the number one. But hopefully these things that I'm about to share will help you in your training blocks to get there a little bit quicker. So the long run is the first area that I want to touch on, and what I've managed to do over the years, and hopefully this will help you, is I've got my long run from a point where 1 hour 15 feels comfortable to 1 hour 30 feels comfortable to 1 hour 45, and now to 2 hours. And now a 2 hour run for me feels very comfortable, and I feel like that's taken a good 4 or 5 training blocks to get there, but it's been so worth it because 12 weeks out from London, I'm feeling like 2 hour 10 runs feel comfortable, and that's a great feeling to have because Not only do I love the long run, if you follow me on Strava, you'll see I have been loving the long run for such a long period of time. And some people say I run for too long. You know, I don't need to run 2 hours, 10 minutes during a 10K training block. I get that. It's not specific to the 10K training, I understand, but I also like to enjoy my running. And I feel like my overall development as a runner has benefited from me taking those small increments, training block after training block. So from one training block going from 1 hour 15, I would make sure I went to 1 hour 20 and then maybe peaked at 1 hour 25. So that when the next training block came around, 1 hour 20 was comfortable, and then I went to 1 hour 25 and 1 hour 30, and then the next one, 125 was comfortable, and so on and so forth. You get the gist. Just increment, you know, just increasing it 5 minutes at a time is a safe way to do it. I stretched it out so that an extra 10 minutes during peak training from week 1 to, let's say, week 8 or 9, where I hit the peak, I was hitting that extra 10 minutes on my long run, and it just felt amazing. And then the next training block, I just made a point of making sure that I upped it by 5 minutes from where I started before, and just incrementing it like that, I found has made a massive benefit on my aerobic development. And we all know that strength work is a crucial part of becoming a stronger runner, but sometimes, if you're like me, you struggle to fit in strength work in and around what we're doing. Now, I do separate core work and back work and stuff, but in terms of if you're struggling for time, or to be honest, you just don't fancy doing hill reps or whatever it might be. Now, I'm not advocating this as a replacement for strength work. This is just a tip that I found. In the start of my training blocks, I tend to take a lot of my workouts onto undulating routes. And then in the second half of my training block, I make them flatter if I'm training for a flat road race, if that makes sense. So I get more specific in the second half of the block. And what that does is it makes me train by feel rather than pace in the first half of my block. So I'm running to what I feel is 10K pace, half marathon pace, but I'm not actually hitting those paces because I'm running on hills. And what I found over the years that's done is just made my legs stronger and stronger and stronger. Then when I hit the flats, suddenly that 10K pace and half marathon pace feels much more comfortable than if I kind of started on the flat and worked my way all the way through. Now, again, we all have our own opinions on this. I do understand that training completely on undulating routes to then go and run a flat race is good, but not entirely beneficial, because you do need to get used to running flat, fast reps. But I save that for the end of my block. I will literally split my block in half. I did it in my recent 10K training block, and I've had great success in breaking 34 minutes twice, which is great. And the second race had a couple of hills in there, and I felt strong and I felt good. And I attribute a lot of that to using undulating routes. Now let's talk interval work. This is a really interesting one, but again, this has helped me massively over the last couple of years in particular. Let's talk shortening the recovery periods. So what I tend to do when I do a training block is I'll start a training block and I'll have longer recovery periods, and then I'll finish it and I'll have shorter recovery periods. If I'm doing speed work, what I might tend to do is go all out on a lot of the reps in the beginning, and then either have a static or a very light jog recovery so that I'm running faster than goal pace for those repetitions, and I'll have a longer rep. So let's say I'm doing 6 by a K, I might take 2 or 3 minutes recovery, just static or a very light jog, but then I'll really give it everything in that kilometer repetition. Towards the end of the block, what I'll do is I'll shorten that rest right down, and I might just have a minute's rest. And what that means I have to do is dial back the pace on the repetition, but I end up jogging a little bit more, what's the right word, aggressively, jogging a little bit more than just a light shuffle. So just continuing to run, but just slowing the pace down. And what that does overall, I've found, is it keeps, well, naturally, it keeps your heart rate higher, so you're working in that zone, more intense zone for longer, and you're getting your body more used to running at race pace, working around that heart rate and not letting your heart rate drop as much. So you're doing more intense work, but in a more controlled way. So in the beginning, you're really going all out. This is what I do anyway, going all out in those repetitions, but then having a good break in between to let my body recover to go fast again. But towards the end, I get a lot more specific, shorten the rest. And if you followed the recent speed block, you'll see I've been doing a lot of threshold work with only 45 seconds rest. What that's meant I've had to do is really control the paces that I'm running the repetitions at, make sure I'm running at goal race pace or in and around there, to allow myself to have a suitable recovery in just 45 seconds to go again. Keeping that heart rate up for higher for longer and the shorter rests is really, really beneficial. And the fourth thing I want to mention is mixing up your long runs. This is something that kind of tags onto the back of point number one, but actually is a completely separate topic, because that was all about just gently increasing it. But what I found is mixing up my long runs has really, really helped my overall development as a runner. And that mainly is down to fatigue. If you've seen recent marathon videos, you'll see that I've been talking about working through fatigue, and that's what marathon training is all about. Well, actually doing long run workouts, you can do them for shorter distances like half marathon training and 10K training, because the long runs don't have to be as much. But what I'm saying is you don't need to go out and do your long runs, all of them just easy. You can mix things up. You can do a variety, and I've done a whole host of videos on long run workouts. You can go back on the channel and search some of those up. I've put my favorite ones out in video before, and it's great to mix things up in the long run. And what I found that does, again, which comes back to marathon training, is just generating fatigue and learning to deal with it, learning to run with it, learning to run through the fatigue, and learning to just get your body to push for longer. The intensity is not obviously there like you are in an interval work, but naturally the longer you run, the more fatigue you get. If you're doing a faster finish long run, if you're doing one half easy, one half moderate, if you're doing, you know, some insane marathon work like 4x5k in the long run, you're just generally getting your body to pick up the pace, slow down, pick up the pace, slow down, and just work those systems over such a longer period of time. And again, what I found that's done is translate and make the shorter workouts that I do a heck of a lot easier. So there we go. Those are my beginner and advanced tips to help you guys run faster for longer. If you're a beginner runner, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, and if any of those tips helped you, or if you do any of them already. And if you're an advanced runner, I'd love to hear if you've done any of what I've just shared, whether it's shortening the interval reps, long run workouts, extending your long run, any of that. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and of course share your tips in the comments below. I'd love that comment section to be a real hub of information for new runners to come scan and check out what you have found has really, really helped you. That's it from me today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Until then.